What was this guy thinking? All right, everybody. So today, um, I'm going to tell you a story of someone that was in the shoe with me. He was from Northern California. He was actually security in C11 with us in the shoe. And so, for those of you that don't know, people hustle in prison, and there's a lot of different hustles, man. Unfortunately, when you're in the shoe, there isn't much you can hustle doing. Drawing, that's about it. Excuse me. You're not going to be selling food. Um, you can't, like, a lot of the illegal activities that go on, you can't personally get out and, do things. If you don't have somebody on the main line that's looking out for you, that's involving you in what they're doing, or you don't have people on the streets looking out for you, then you're dependent on the state and the camaradas around you, the people around you. And I've said how in the past how if you don't go to canteen, you're just you're indigent, you're not able to go for whatever reason. The guys that don't go to store usually make out pretty well because everybody shops the same day. This is old days, right? And they'll ask, beforehand, hey, homie, you going to store? Nah, Holmes, I'm not gonna be able to make it. All right, Holmes, you need anything in particular? Hey, you think you could give me a deodorant? Right? Whatever. And everybody in the pod, when they shop, they'll make sure they drop off a little package for you, a little care package. And nobody's gonna go hungry, man. Unless you're a piece of crap, then nobody's gonna look out for you. They're trying to spear you. They're trying to dart you, whatever they can to get you out of there. They don't want you in there with them. Now, unfortunately, there is one hustle that some people use, some people utilize. And I never respected it myself. But here we go. So this guy used to get on the tier and he was talking about the way he was working this chick, right? So one day he's on the tier and he's talking about how he's been built, like he was excited. I think I've even told this story before, but I felt like I wanted to tell it again. And he was like excited to tell this story. You could hear the excitement in his voice. Like he hit the lottery. He did it, right? And he's like, "Yeah, Holmes, I've been fucking planting seeds. I've been planning this thing for I don't know how many months, or it was a year or whatever it was." Excuse me. But he said that he had a pen pal. This woman who he had been telling that he had nobody on the streets, and so she would send him enough money to go to store. And he had set it up that he was a sole survivor. His whole family perished in a house fire in Chicago when he was very, very young. And he was put in a foster care or adoption. I don't know. He was put in something, and he was adopted, and the people that adopted him were in California, and he grew up in Modesto, right? This dude was a lifer, and he was telling her, he didn't tell her he was a lifer, and he was telling her that he was paroling soon, and that he was concerned because he didn't have anyone on the streets to pay the flight from California to Chicago, and that because he was from Chicago, that he had a parole there, and if he didn't make it there, that they were going to violate him and send him back to prison. Now, obviously, she doesn't know anything, because anybody that knows anything, if you left Chicago and you were raised in Modesto, then there's no reason for you to be sent back to Chicago. You are going to be sent to the county of conviction. Unless, being a lifer, your county doesn't want you there, and then they're going to send you to whatever transitional home you can go to. But this was actually before they even started letting lifers go home, right? And so he's bragging. He's on the tier for everybody to hear. And he's talking about that he didn't even know how to book a flight. He doesn't know how much the flight costs, and there's no way he can get it. So, and the woman said, well, I looked it up. She wrote him back and said, well, I looked it up, and this is how much it cost. And then next thing you know, he receives a money order. He got money on his books, and it was for the round trip flight and like food and lodging, I think even. So she sent him. I want to say it was like $1,200. It may have been more, but he's telling this story, and my Sally and I are looking at each other like, listen to this shit, eh? Like, this Vato's really on the tier with that. So we're waiting to see how this conversation turns out. Well, we found out. See, he was talking to one of the legends that he was up under. A dude from Salinas. And the Vato from Salinas, he told him, ain't you fucking embarrassed to be telling stories like that and have that kind of hustle? And that Vato was like, oh, like you could tell, like, oh shit. Like he was like, oh, well, hey, this and that. And he's like, no. He goes, let me ask you a question. Does that high not have any kids? And he's like, yeah, she has kids. And he's like, so you're taking fucking food out of those kids' mouths because you can't figure out any other way to make some fucking money around here? Like that, and then you're on the fucking tier. You know how fucked up that makes you look? Like, we're all right here listening to you, and he's like, hey, look, he went in on him so bad. He never told another story about that woman, but I guarantee you he didn't stop working her. And I'm not telling this story to shit on anybody who's got a woman on the streets that takes care of them, because not everybody works people like that. But I have to be honest and say, in the shoe, I did see, I saw bottles that would have a piece of paper on their wall. And it would have various women's names that they were talking to. And on there, it was like a graph. So behind the woman's name, some key things that he said, he would write down for each different woman. If it was a different story, he would write it down so that he wouldn't mix up the stories. And he was working them. They were working them. And it's dudes like that that mess it up for the dudes that really are in there trying to find, See, now that they got the family visits back, people are really trying to get a woman and have those visits and have those moments, man. Me, I hated going to visiting. I didn't like going to visit. It was not something I enjoyed doing. But when I went, like, I made it clear to everybody that knew me. Hey, Holmes, when I'm in visit, like, you don't need to come to my table. You don't need to talk to me. After visit, we can chop it up when our visitors leave. But whatever you got to tell me, you can tell me on the yard. And when you go to the visiting room, that is your hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is, to not be incarcerated, to have a conversation with someone that you can actually be you. You don't have to be guarded. You don't have to decipher. Unfortunately, those of us that have done a lot of time, we do pay attention to every word and every sentence. And it can create arguments sometimes or misunderstandings, because we're careful with the words we use. We use the words we use for the meaning. People out here will use certain words and not understand, like, I'm going to take that word for an example, the word issue. You mention that to somebody in prison, hey, homie, I want to get at you about this issue. That's serious. People out here say, I want to discuss an issue with you. They have a topic they want to discuss. Not understanding that to someone, to an ex-comic, they're like, what? What issue? We don't have no issue. So there's certain words out here. Maybe I'll do a video about that. There's certain words out here that hold certain meanings or will evoke a certain reaction like that in there, or to people that are from in there. Regardless of the innocent intent of those out here, there's just certain words that are like, huh? And, you know, somebody got at me about a year ago and they used that word. But there's somebody that they're behind the walls. And when they use that word, I said, hey, that's a pretty big word to be using when we don't know each other. And so I didn't hear anything back, and, you know, but it was just funny because, like I said, there's certain words, and it's like, hey, Holmes, you use certain words, and if I know you know, then it immediately puts that discussion, that conversation on a more serious level. Anyways, I just wanted to tell that story about that dude, and he was an all right guy, but that right there, he couldn't erase that from everyone's mind. Once he did that, people were like, hey, Holmes, you hear that fucking mouth? That's a cold fucking piece of work right there, huh? Everybody's like, yeah, fuck that. And meanwhile, you got a Vato at the end of the tier fucking pouring his heart out to somebody, and they're fucking giving him the runaround. Anyways, that's my video for today. We are going to be going live at noon today, so I want to hurry up and get this out. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them, man. I'm out of here.